What's going on, advocates? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Got another change agent in the building. I love collaborating with people who are doing the work and, using their life's goals to make, strides in the mental health field. Hey, I don't introduce nobody because I want y'all to introduce yourselves and get all the credentials out there. So please introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, Reg, appreciate you. My name is Doug Middleton from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I currently live outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Going on 7th year NFL veteran. Spent some time with the Jets, the Jaguars, and most recently the 49ers. With mental health, I lost my best friend in 2017, and since then I've just been on the move with action. Started my foundation, Dreaming Impossible, to help youth and mental health awareness and suicide prevention, not only with youth, but also with student athletes. Then went on to, get into public speaking, and travel around and do a ton of public speaking on mental health and suicide prevention. Most recently spoke at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention National Conference, spoken at numerous universities with student athletes. And then I'm also working on a virtual therapy app for student athletes and, providing therapy at a low cost for them. And then my most recent project is a yoga studio that I'm working on that's going to have behavioral health therapists on site.
Man, we just was talking off air before we started recording about how taking that level of work ethic from the field onto this world and how it's rewarding work, but it's still work at the end of the day. Like you think it's just like I want to serve my community, but it's like, man, this is work. This is still a job at the end of the day, and I gotta put the same amount of hours I'll put into another job, if not more.
Yeah. Now you hit it right on the head. Like we were just talking about being more efficient and getting more out of our time, because sometimes it feels like, of course, I got a lot of things going on, but that work ethic is in me. Like we talked about, it's been in me for a while. Not only with football, but now I just got to get it, out of my next career transition and being able to get just as much done as I was able to get done before. So that's the thing that I'm working on, man. Just trying to tighten up my routine and get better with some of the things I'm doing and try to do more. Everybody's trying to do more, but I told my brother, I heard this quote from Denzel Washington. Don't ever confuse movement with progress. Just because we're doing a lot doesn't mean we're getting a lot more done. And that's the thing that I'm really trying to focus on is not just doing a bunch of movement, but actually making some good progress.
No, I'll ask this because you're in the building. I haven't asked in a long time. Like I asked college football players or just players in general that was in the space of like, all right, there is a fine line, and maybe you can talk about how you navigate it. A fine line about being aggressive and doing your job and going hard, right? But also being mentally stable while doing it, because you could kind of lose yourself in that, right? How do you balance that line, or what are your thoughts on that concept?
So you're saying being aggressive versus being mentally stable. So I think that's the toughest thing as athletes, because for so long we've been taught the words to push through and it's not that bad and to overcome and just any pain that you've ever felt. I mean, if you go into the strength coach or the medical staff, they just gonna give you some pain medicine and tell you to get back out there. So, you've been taught your whole life just to not really acknowledge pain. And as athletes, that's what we get paid to do. That's why people enjoy watching us play, because they see those hits and they see that pain and they see people get back up and do it again. But the thing you have to realize is that some of those habits really do transition into your life, and being able to not acknowledge pain on the field is definitely different than not being able to acknowledge, pain that you may face from trauma in your life. And I think, being able to separate the two is what's important. Just knowing how to know that, my pain that I'm feeling because, I grew up in a one-parent household, or the pain that I'm feeling because, I don't have the proper resources that I need to really step into my purpose, versus the pain that I have because I'm cramping on the field because I'm not in the best shape I could be in. So I mean, they both go hand in hand, but at the same time we have to know that there is a difference, and the treatments are different. I actually just tweeted that this morning, and I wish I probably could have been a little bit more clear with my tweet, but I was just talking about how, there's a difference between, being exhausted physically and then being exhausted, emotionally and mentally, because, it's two different things. Like, I could be tired when I'm running gases on the football field, but, me being emotionally and mentally drained is something that's totally different. And but yeah, I think those are the differences. And then how you actually, stay mentally stable within that is just being able to know the difference, knowing how to separate the two, and then knowing that each one of them takes, they takes different treatment. Like you can't fix a pulled hamstring with the same thing you fix with intergenerational trauma. It doesn't work the same way. So it's just about knowing the difference.
Man, that was a great. I was trying to pull the tweet up as you was talking, but you was
Yeah.
going in. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you explained it, because that sometimes with things like that, they need to be expressed in the way that you intended them to do it. So I'm glad you were able to, furtherly explain that. You talked about your stint with the 49ers, and as you transition, and not to speak more of like the NFL side of things, but that period where you now have to find another passion, right? Where
Yeah.
this has been your whole life, this is what you've been training for, but now it's like I got to start to find other things that give me that same feeling. Can you talk about that transition? Because I know a lot of athletes, or from what I'm reading and watching different podcasts, that they struggle with that transition.
Man, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's real, man. That transition is really tough, and it's very tough. I've had a lot of my friends go through it. I've had a lot of friends that have been very successful doing it, and then a lot of them that have really struggled deeply doing it. But the words of encouragement, words of advice I can give people is to never stop trying to find your passion. Even though you're playing football, even though you're on the football field and everything is going right, that's the perfect time you need to be exploring other passions that you have outside of the game, because anything can happen. Injuries can happen. You can get cut. A new coaching staff, like things continuously change. And for me, starting to wrap my mind around this transition is it's been a little bit easier, because my entire life and career, like I've thought about what life looks like for me outside the game of football, because making it to NFL was just something that most people thought for me was impossible. Like that's why, that's half the reason I named my foundation Dreaming Impossible, because like everything I accomplished in life, people look at it like, man, like that's awesome. Like you did that. Like I never thought you would do that. For me, even to make it to Appalachian State, as a scholarship, like I was their last scholarship offer. Like it was a lot of other people that said no, and they offered me a few days before, and I told my coaches that I were going in high school, and they couldn't believe it. They used to tell me like, man, they would never offer you, like, and then they did it. And it's like that's been how my whole life has went. So I've always thought about what the next phase of my life looks like. And there's no better time to do that than while you're playing football, because a lot of people, you have a platform that you probably won't have for the rest of your life. People will listen to some of the ideas you have. People will give you internships. People will let you come job shadow them, and they pick up the phone anytime you call. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, especially athletes. While you're playing, try to leverage all the relationships you can right now, because after you make that transition, a lot of those people won't pick up the phone. And then I think that's why I see a lot of the guys struggle, is that they get done and then they start thinking about what their actual passion is for the rest of their life and their purpose. And it takes them a minute to find it. I mean, it took you a minute to find football. It took you a minute to find sports. Like you're not just gonna find it just like that. And I think that's what my best calling is. Not only in life, is just helping people find their purpose and passion. Because I feel like once you do that, you open the floodgates of opportunity, and you'll be willing to do things like this for free just because you love it so much, and this is what you feel like you were called on the earth to do, rather than only thinking about putting food on the table for your family or just paying bills. Like you'll just figure out like, okay, this is what I was truly put on this earth to do, and that's amazing once you find that feeling.
You, Doug, are in a position that a lot of young Black men want to be in, right? But they don't talk about. So, say we're coming from environments where you are the meal ticket, quote unquote, right? Like we're our generational success is dependent upon your career and what you, if it happens, in your capacity, right? But no one talks about the pressure and toll that takes on the person and individual that's going through it. Can you speak to more is that? And again, it coming from a person that did make it, that did come in that space, and how that pressure and how it looks like. or feel like?
Yeah. So let me give you an example. So I was going in my second year. I was down in Miami training, and I was just at the park. I had already finished up with workouts for the day. So I went to the park, and it was this kid and his mom sitting next to me right before I ran out to work out. And I think the kid was probably about 6 or 7 at the oldest. And they were about to start like team drills. Other kids, other little kids out there and stuff. And right before he ran out there, the mom told the kid, "All right, go have a good practice. Go get mom at that house."
Mm,
And so to hear, like, I just turned around and heard that, I'm like, to hear that at the age of 6,
mm,
that your mom and your family is putting pressure on you, is as if you are the meal ticket and you're the only thing that can, provide a financial, area of protection for the family is, I mean, that's tough. That's I mean, that's something that, that's at the forefront of your mind every day, and it's really tough to live life and play football like that,
mm,
because every decision, everything that you go through in your life, you're thinking about, okay, how is this going to affect not only me but the rest of my family? And at the end of the day, football is a game. Is people always say, it's a child's game, and you playing it for king's ransom. But at the same time, you got to realize that there are a lot of people that are providing for their families. I'm providing for my families. I know a lot of people that's providing for generations, not only their immediate families, but their moms, their grandmas. Like, they're paying a lot of people's bills. And so to carry that, is very tough. I know a lot of guys that, they may get cut or fired, or have to, get traded, and they have multiple family members living with them, or they have multiple family members that are on allowance that they're paying, so it affects everybody. And mentally, how you deal with that, I think it really comes into being able to separate yourself, from those family members at time, and putting up barriers. For example, if it's something to do with finances or anything like that, my mom handles all those calls. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? And I know other guys that do things just like that. Like, if there's a money guy that's in his circle, there's a guy that handles all the any kind of domestic issues that go on within the family. Somebody got locked up. Somebody about to get
mhm,
kicked out the house, like that. Don't call me. I got a lot already going on, just trying to put food on the table. That's job number one. But then when you bring those other stressors in, that's not allowing you, to do your job, and to do, what even they're asking you to do. So I think that's what it comes down to. It, and you just got to separate yourself. And then if you can't do it, you can't do it. I mean, you can't put yourself in a position that, where you're funding everybody else's dream, and you're not even funding your own dream, because at the end of the day, once that money run out, that those same people that's asking you for help, they're not going to be able to help you,
mm.
and now you're going to be in a real tough spot. So that's why I always tell people: take care of yourselves first, take care of your immediate family first, and then if you can, reach back and help other family members. Try to do that. Try to help out your community for sure, but just take it a day at a time.
One more question around that. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, like you said, you put people in a position to put barriers in a way to help support you doing that, right? How do you navigate knowing who's just looking for like relationships, and that's women, friendships, anybody? How do you know who's only there because you're Doug Middleton, the football player, as opposed to Doug Middleton, the person?
Yeah, that's real. That's real, Reg. I think for me though, I think I'm a little bit different because I got a really good feeling for energy. Like, I'm a big energy person. Like, as soon as I walk in the room with a person, or as soon as I first talk to them, I'm gonna decide right then and there whether whether I'm gonna be friends with the person or not. I can just sometimes I'm wrong, but I think about 85% of the time I'm right. And I really don't let too many people in. You know what I'm saying? I'm very surface level, so I can be friends with any and everybody, but at the same time, like my real true brothers that I roll with every day, those relationships are built off of tough times. Those
Mm,
relationships are built off things that we went through that can't be duplicated. And I think that's what you gotta, that's what you have to find when you're trying to find your circle, is put people in positions to prove themselves. Once they do prove themselves, and prove themselves as trustworthy, then handle that accordingly, and move the relationship according to that. I think, as soon as I realized that that somebody is not trustworthy or somebody has different motives, I address it. I mean, just like anything else, and we have a conversation about it. And if the relationship needs to end there, then it does. And if we can't salvage that relationship, then it is what it is. But I don't hang with too many people. Like I said, I'm always around a lot of people. That's just the type of person I am. But at the same time, my circle is very, very tight, and I'm very careful with the motives that I have around.
Nah, and I appreciate that. Doug told me off air, like instead of sending me to the PR team, he said he was like, "Yo, I can handle this on my own." So I feel like he filled my heart when it comes to
Yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
I appreciate
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. Like I said, man, I can feel people's energy, man. It is no diss to anybody I send to the PR team. It's not like that, you know what I'm saying? But me and Reg, we've been meaning to do this for a while, and I see a lot of the work that you do, and like I said, I just feel your energy, man. We done did some events together, some podcasts together. I could just, feel the passion coming out of you, man. So I always, support like-minded people like that.
No, I appreciate that. And going into Doug Middleton, the person, talk to me about the foundation, man. Dream the impossible. What's the goals? What's the intentions? What people can know? What are the mission? Just anything in general.
Yeah, for sure. So I started this foundation back in 2018. After I lost my best friend to suicide, it was my best friend growing up. We both played, football together, track together. We were both, really good athletes. And to be honest, athletes change our life. I tell people that all the time. There's many places in the world that I got to see. This house I live in, everything that I have is not only because of God and my family, but also because of sports. Sports is changed my life, and it changed my friend's AJ's life. And I feel like it can change a lot of other people's lives too, if they take it serious enough. And for me, it's all about awareness and education, because those are the two things that kind of hindered my best friend from still being here today. And that's the fact that I wasn't as educated, and just as the awareness that's out there for mental health in the African American community. I spoke at his funeral, and I talked about how mental health has, impacted his life, and how severe depression, was a mental illness that changed his life. And after I got done speaking, the pastor got up there and he was like, you know, heck with everything he talking about. Like, let's just take our burdens to the Lord.
Hmm.
And when he said that, I was like, man, God has really put a lot of true professionals in this world that can help in the mental health space. We got therapists, psychologists, like a ton of people that are making some real good progress out here. And if we just combine those resources with the resources of the church, us as African Americans, us as Black people would have a lot more progress in the mental health space as a people. And after that, I got done talking, and I walked out the church, and a lot of people walked up to me and they said, "Hey, man, like I'm hurting too. I'm going through it too, and I need some resources. Can you tell me about any resources that's out there?" And I just started thinking about them, and I started thinking about some that were in my area, and there were a few, but I definitely felt that there was a gap that maybe I could create something that could slide in and handle a lot of the issues that our people face. And for our foundation, Dream the Possible, it's all about starting early. I think once we get to that 30 plus or 25 plus age, a lot of our mind and brain is already developed, and a lot of these skills, if we learn them earlier in our life, we learn social emotional learning. If we learn the risk factors when we talk about suicide prevention, or we learn all the things that go into being a good friend, or being able to know when our friend is dealing with something, and we learn some of those things earlier in the process, I feel like we would take them all through life, and there wouldn't be such a stigma around mental health. And so that's what we do with the kids. We go around and everything from uh, third grade up, we go and talk about mental health and mental health education and awareness. And we put on tons of programs throughout the year. We got maybe 3 of them going on in the next 2 weeks. We just finished up Mental Health Day, where we went and spoke at 5 schools, and one day over 800 students and student athletes, and we talked to them about having a dream, finding purpose and passion, and also the obstacles that you face along the way and how to handle them mentally. And then next we have our 707, second annual You're Not Alone 707, in which it's a competition for sure. We all love to go out there and compete, but at the end of the day, it's about mental health awareness. And two of the schools that are participating have lost student athletes to suicide, and we can't let that happen anymore. And we want to put together an event that brings the professionals in with the student athletes and just educates them about the resources that are out there. And then we got another camp, Dreamers Camp, which is June 4th weekend, and it's going to be a camp that is very different than the rest. It's not just football. It's going to be financial literacy, mental health education, social emotional learning, and just putting all those resources together with people in the community and going out and just doing action. I think that's what we're all about. Anything that we can do to educate our youth when it comes to mental health, to provide them and help them with the cost of therapy, and then also just to help them with, finding their purpose and passion, and anything that fits in there as far as being able to achieve that goal and dream that they have, and the resources that it may take to accomplish that. That's what we do.
Man, salute to you on all the work that you do, especially dealing with our babies and the youth, because that's where we get that's where you make that turning point of where you want to go in life. That's it. So I definitely appreciate that and support anything. If you need me for anything, I definitely will come out. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, and it's probably a personal question, but I know there's like the chances of making it to the league are slim to none, right? So you give hope to brothers in the community, like, you know what, if he can do it, we can do it, right? But there's a transition space where you start to know, I'm like, I ain't growing past 5'9", I ain't getting no bigger. But that's depressing because you put all your life and your energy into that spot, in that space. Have you ever talked to, or what do you do to tell the youth about other options and alternative options? Like, I mean, it's giving them other options besides, I got to make it to the league for this.
Red, that's what we do. You just gave me the layup. That's it right there. When I walk into the building, and I got, there's maybe like 500 kids in there. The first thing I do is, it's easy, man. I do this in my sleep. First thing I do, say what y'all want to be when y'all grow up. What's y'all dream? 75% of the room is gonna say, "Oh, I want to make it to the NFL, want to make it to the NBA." I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's cool, and then I go around with the stats. Let's dive into the stats. Okay, I say, what is the chance you have of making it to the NFL? And they say, oh, there's tons of people in the NFL and such like this. And I was like, okay, did you know that there's only 1,600 people in the NFL, and there's 7.7 billion people in the world? Like, no, I didn't know that. And I go around and I say, well, do you know you have less than a 0.1% chance of even making it, to be I think it's like 1% to be Division I and 0.1% to be in the NFL for a couple of years or more. And when they hear that, they get really discouraged. And I go around, the next thing I say is, well, I'm not saying these stats to say that you can't do it. Like, I hope you all do it. Like, I hope you all, play like Tom Brady, you know what I'm saying, for, 20 plus years. But the thing is, even if you do that, say, for example, you get the average, you get 3 to 4, which is still awesome. 3 to 4 years in the league, you're still going to be 28 years old. What are you going to do next?
Right.
And so when I say that, they all pause and they all look around and they get real quiet. And I say, I want everybody in here to take a couple minutes and think about, like, what is next after that? What do you want to do? And then that's when you really start to dive into what their true purpose and passion is. And then you take that, you say, hey, like, you use sports as motivation. So sports is just motivation for me. Sports is motivation for me to do good in school. Like, it's like, man, all I gotta do is, if I want to play football, my parents used to tell me I got to have A's and B's. You know what I'm saying? So not only was that my motivation to really stay dedicated in school, because, as a young Black kid, you don't see many, lawyers just walking around. So if somebody says, like, hey, like, you need to have good grades to be a lawyer. Like, okay, well, I don't see many people out there that's doing it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, all these grades you're talking about, like, that's going to be really hard to do. So I say, okay, listen. You want to go D1, you want to play, you want to play sports, you want to play at the Alabamas and athlete. That's fine. Let's work to that. This is what working to that looks like. Working to that looks like, you doing overtime in your practice, you doing overtime in the classroom. So if you are one of those kids that are 5'9", 5'8", and probably won't develop as quick as the rest of these kids, at least you being a smart student to buy you enough time to develop into maybe getting a scholarship or continue your education and career at the college level. And then after that, we go into, okay, well, how do I, leverage the fact that, hey, like I have this sports platform, like I play sports, I love sports, but how do I leverage that into knowing what I want to do, outside of my sport? So that's we call that athlete and, for example, so say I'm a wide receiver or a linebacker, like one of our student athletes, is a linebacker at West Virginia. You know what I'm saying? He's been in the program since he was in high school. And, the whole time he's I mean, he's one of the, he's a great football player, but at the end of the day, football will come to an end, or sports will come to an end for everybody. How do I leverage that platform I have right now with what I want to do in the future? And that means finding people that are already in that space. Because like I said, when I first got on, there's a lot of people that will pick up your phone. Like when they hear like a West Virginia football player is calling them, trying to learn about what they're doing career-wise and as an entrepreneur, or even you, Reg, if I got a student athlete that's like, hey man, I want to be a psychologist when I grow up. Okay, cool. Well, I can give you Reg's number, and Reg is like, man, like, yeah, I talked to this kid that played football at Alabama. Yeah, I talked to him about what I got. And so now you have the opportunity to learn about the other careers that's out there, while, still going after your dream, still chasing your dream. But now it's forcing you to think about what's next after football. So, or what's next after any sport. So when that transition happens, it's not like, oh, damn, what do I do now? Like, my mom, I put all my eggs in this one basket. What do I do now? And that's what we want to teach kids and our youth, is that, you're not selling yourself short, or you're not doing yourself a disjustice by thinking about what else is out there in sports. Like sports is all, it's still playing A. I'm with you on that. Sports is still playing A. I hope you make it and play as long as you can. But if that doesn't happen, and if that does happen, you're still 28, you're still 25 or whatever, what's next? And that's when we have to have that smooth transition, because if we hinder that transition, if we slow that transition down, any money that we may have made, any relationships that we may have made, while we were playing or anything like that, while we were in college or whatever professional leagues, those relationships, that money is gone, because you're just sitting around waiting, trying to figure out what your purpose and passion is. And next thing you know, you'll be done playing, and it's 5 or 6 years before you get into your next phase of your career. And that's too long of a drop off. We need to at least, the goal is at least within a year or two to make that transition into what you want to do next.
Man, and Doug, this is why somebody like yourself is so needed, because if I go into these schools and talk to these athletes or whatever the case may be, it won't resonate as much as a Doug who played and was in the league and can show highlights and all of these different things. And like, hey, I'm telling you, because you gonna, if you do become me, I'm doing this now. Like I'm transitioning right now, or I'm doing these different things, and it will only come better hearing it from someone who did it. It's just like when people try to come in and talk about getting street kids out the street. If you ain't been in the streets, they ain't gonna listen to you. Like they don't want to hear it.
Not gonna listen to, and I mean, I can, like when you say both of those, I just keep thinking about so many stories that's happened in the past, just week in my life. When I went, to my old high school, and I got in there and I started talking, they were all loud and stuff like that. And I mean, it's a bunch of students in one gym, and the gym echoes and stuff. And I'm like, man, the first thing I said is like, hey, I was sitting, right there in the seats that you were sitting at, and I made it to, where I am now. And then they get quiet, because it's like, well, dang, he was here. So like, like, let me listen to what he's saying. And then so I go on and I tell him and explain to him, like, what were some of those deciding factors? What were some of the things that I focus on that helped me get out of where we are now, where you are now, to where you want to be? And then that's when they start to listen. So I'm right there with you. And then the second question, when you were talking about the streets, man, it's real, man. It was some kids was getting my haircut last week, and it was a couple of kids, about 4 or 5 of them, walking around with the the mask on, the hoodies on, and it's 90 degrees outside. And I'm like, man, what are y'all doing? Like, you can't walk around like this. And we just want to we got people looking for us. We want to, we want to stay out the way. I'm like, man, you just bring attention to yourself.
It's a
Doing all
fact.
this. And so they didn't listen to me. So then I walked into the barbershop and then I just sat down with them and just, start talking to them like, okay, where I'm from. And they're like, well, you don't know about what we go through. And then I sit down and start talking to them. Then they start listening.
Yeah.
Then, crazy thing about it though, it was really sad. Like the next day, two of those kids got shot the very next day. And, what it is a testimony in the fact that one of those kids that were in there, he called me. He was like, man, like I was hearing what you were saying, but now I really hear what you're saying. And I don't want to be in this anymore. And I want to change my life and I need some positive mentors around me. So we're going to try to find him some mentors and get him on the right track. But and the streets are real, man. I got a lot of respect, for the kids that overcome what they overcome every day. And I tell them all the time, like, what you overcome and what you're going through right now is just part of your story. Whether you grew up in, where you grow up at, no matter how many parents you grew up with or how much money they make or, whatever you got going on, that's just part of your story. And I always tell people, yeah, you have a story, but there are people who have overcome what you have overcome. And those are the people you look and research and you get on Google and you say, okay, famous people who were homeless or famous people who, were orphans or famous people who, didn't, came from poverty or whatever like that. And you look them up and look their stories up and that's how you use them as motivation. It's like, man, if such and such made it out of this, I can too. So that's what it's all about.
Man, you done went and stole what I was about to ask you next. If you can add towards that, please follow Dream Impossible
Yeah.
on Instagram. But there's pain that uses you and pain that you use. This is something you used, or you said when you were the keynote speaker at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Can you explain? I know you did a little bit, but just what you meant by that when you shared that.
Yeah. So when I shared that, I talked about the pain, the pain that I had when I lost my best friend to suicide. Like I said, that was my best friend my entire life growing up. Grew up on the same street since the age of 6. Did everything together. Played sports together. Rode to school every day together. There was a lot of memories that we shared, and so when I lost him, there was a lot of pain that I experienced. And so when I started to think about the pain that I experienced, um, of course we had to acknowledge that pain, but then we had to realize that, the pain that God has put in our life wasn't created just to hurt us, and once we actually take a step back and realize that, like, man, this pain that like I lost him, he's gone. But what is this what opportunity or who else can I help from this pain that I'm going through right now? And his pain helped me find my purpose. You know what I'm saying? And I always tell people that there's pain that uses you and pain you use. And AJ's pain was pain that I used. I used his pain to go around and speak about mental health and to help other people who may have suicidal thoughts, who may, be a decision away from taking their own life. And hopefully they hear my story, hear somebody else's story, and that's why they decide to live another day. And that's what I try to tell people is think about the pain that you've experienced in your life. Like there is purpose behind that pain, and it wasn't created to hurt you. It wasn't created to harm you. It was created to make you tougher, to make you the person you are today. And that's what it's all about is finding purpose and passion, because like I'm just so big on that, because our life isn't defined about, how much money we got. It's not defined about how many followers we got. It's defined about, can I wake up every day and really be proud of the life that I'm living and really be proud of the work that I'm doing and really be proud of, the purpose that I have in my life. And, that's what it's all about. Like my dad been driving trucks for 25 years, public work. My dad loves driving trucks. That's his purpose. In fact, like you wouldn't want to do nothing else in the world. You know what I'm saying? And you look at it like, man, I wouldn't want to do that. But that's his purpose and passion. You know what I'm saying? And it's not the same for everybody else. If you find that, if you look behind that pain, if you look up, and he'll tell you his testimony. My dad started off driving trucks for $5 an hour, like 20 years ago, and people are like, man, that's crazy. Like, but he just loved it so much. and he'll tell you about how he raised his family, having to go through all of that, and he was still able to overcome all the adversity that he's facing in his life, multiple DUIs and this and that, to now being able to have, raise 3 kids. Two of them ended up playing professional football at one point in time in their life, and then now they're moved on to do, things in the mental health space. So, I mean, that's what it's all about, and it's finding, finding that purpose. And I feel like the pain that you experience in your life is just going to help you get there a little bit faster if you take a step back and acknowledge that pain.
I think you just gave the closing remarks. I was just about to ask you, or like, if there's any lasting words you want to leave the people with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say like last closing remarks is I don't know, just enjoy life. Life is so fragile. We only here for so short of amount of time. But during that time, just try to make find what you enjoy to do, what you enjoy doing, and just try to make an impact on as many people as you can. And you first got to do that by figuring out what can you do that you not only enjoy, but what can you do and do it well.
Mm.
And I think that's like I said, when we go dive into purpose and passion, then also um, don't be afraid to be different. I tell people that all the time. Like I'm a different athlete. A lot of athletes don't think like this, and but it's only really helped me out in my life as far as me going and being able to make this transition now, moving from football into my next career phase, and I think that's it, man. I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and rap with you. I love the work that you're doing. I think it's great that we give people their flowers, when they're doing good work now, man. Because people you always look at rappers and their albums start to really go crazy and sell after a person dies. Like, man, why you ain't buy when they was living?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that and thank you for the work that you're doing out here in the community. So, but yeah, that's all I got, man.
No, it's likewise, same thing. I appreciate you because again, you don't have to do anything that you're doing right now. You could have took your money that you made and was like, "All right, I'm gonna go off on an island, enjoy the rest of my life." But you're doing so much of the work that come back into the communities and have these conversations that could change the trajectory literally of someone's life. So I appreciate you likewise as well. On that note, please share this podcast, share something that Doug said, share this with an athlete, let them know this conversation exists because this may change, again, like we just said, the trajectory of someone's lives and impact someone you wouldn't even know that they're going through these certain things. And leave a comment, leave a quote that Doug said so we can make sure we can get another picture quote frame up there that we can put out there to the community. So leave a comment on iTunes. And on that note, remember that this platform has never been about being a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.